Well, we are back. We are back with more Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord War Sales news, and it's starting to ramp up into something even more exciting. War Sales is going to be the next expansion, or really the first expansion that Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord has to offer. Completely new content, taking us into the north, the new Nordic faction that is being added in, setting sail and trying to claim new lands. But we finally had another Q&A, more information expanding on what this DLC is about. So let's dive straight into it. Is the new expanded changed map from War Sales also in the base game, or will there be two different world maps? This is referring to the fact there will be an extension on the map already, that we have Radia, and of course with War Sales adding in a new faction, they also have to add in new regions and land. We already know from the past developer blog there will be a separate island off the shore, and of course more areas up north that the Nords will start in. They can then start to push down south. But how will this work in the game itself? Is there going to be two new maps? Well, Tailwords have said there will be two separate world maps, the existing one for the base game and a new one for War Sales. The latter, the War Sales one, will contain certain changes relevant to naval gameplay and the new Nordic faction, as I've already discussed a little bit earlier. This means that you will be launching two separate maps, and I'm assuming that saves probably won't transfer between, but I guess we'll have to see a little bit later on. There will be no bridges to disrupt your naval voyages, and of course towns and castles will be within this game, defended or captured, even owned by the new Nordic kingdom. There'll be 4 new towns and 10 castles, though the exact number of castles may change slightly depending on balancing experience, and this will be in the Nord's kingdom control from the start. But like any faction, these can be changed hands depending on where wars and allegiances go. What food will Nordic villages produce? Well, Tail, as I mentioned, the harsh environment of North makes it harder to produce surplus grain, leaving the Nords to rely more on fish. Several villages across the map also will have their production changed to accommodate the new walrus, ivory, and whale oil trade goods. These are new additions coming into the game. Whale oil is going to be incredibly valuable, as well as this ivory, meaning that trading and actually becoming a naval or seafaring trader is going to be something that might be a lucrative option. Being able to do a less warfaring type of playthrough is definitely going to be something that I'll be interested in. There will be boosted fish yields, bringing them on par with grain as another staple food source in Radia. All of these will be introduced through new trade opportunities in a combination with naval voyages. So there's going to be some interesting changes within the base map as well, because of course there is actually some parts of the original map that might have to change. More specifically, the islands. There are a couple of islands between the Empire's land and Azerai, and we can see them on the map as such. At the moment, they can't be traveled to because there is no navy within that part of the game. But when they've added in War Cells in the expansion, how is that going to affect it? They will actually be completely removed. There will be no longer islands between the Azerai and Empire on the War Cells map. Now, the decision for this, I don't know. Maybe they could have just added in a new village or a new city, or maybe it was just because it was too complicated to add the sailing experience down in the southern part of the map and the main focus is up top. But there are also some big changes that have happened. There are 2 major crossings, some of, well, the narrow land bridges, for example, between Enquiries and Ortizia, down in the left-hand side of our map. Before, what you could do is in the Empire territory, you could walk across into Azerai territory due into Kuraz, and this part would be, well, a normal land bridge because there was no navy. But now that's been completely removed. This is going to be part of the naval expansion. The southern corridor between these 2 cities and the northern pass linking Omor and Varnovopol will allow travel into 2 massive bodies of water which would otherwise be blocked off. So we know that there's so many changes that are coming into this game that don't just affect new stuff but all the old stuff put together as well. The map is going to be completely opened up for naval travel, and you're going to be able to traverse between the whole thing with these ships, even though despite it changing the base game map. When forming a naval army, does each party have to own and maintain its own ships, or can an army leader supply vessels for everybody? Well, this is a bit more of a complicated question. Each party is responsible for acquiring and maintaining its own ships. For example, if you have an NPC leading an army or you leading an army, you need to have ships to cover all the men in that party. However, when armies, in other words, parties that come into consolidated groups, they can set sail even if they're not all linked up parties have ships, as long as some of the parties in the army have them. This would kind of be represented as parties joining other parties and sharing the ship space if there's additional space around. Maybe a low ship versus a troop. However, there are going to be some limitations to this. A low ship versus troop ratio penalizes the army's campaign movement speed. Shipless parties en route to join the army try to link up on land or move to the last known army embarking position if the army is already naval. For example, if you are at sea and you call an army and you try and get your parties to come to you, they will go to your last known position on land because that's just where the orders were given to. Once the army disembarks, they attempt to link up via land again. again, parties in this limbo state also take care of their urgent needs, like acquiring food or avoiding significant threats. The army creation menu contains more information about summoning parties to ships, allowing you to make better informed decisions on this though. Now, there are new marine troops within the game that are going to be more suitable to fighting in these ships, but what happens when you've got cavalry units? You can take up inventory space with horses on ships, but they don't provide a naval speed bonus like having cavalry in your army does on land. Now, this is very, very interesting. It includes both cavalry and horse archers. This system benefits factions like the Nords, who don't really have cavalry. They rely more on their marine troops, so it limits heavy cavalry factions like the Khuzaits, who are going to be a lot weaker at sea, as you'd probably expect. Because if you go to sea with a ton of horses, that's going to take up a lot of your ship inventory space, because unfortunately the horses can't help to row. They're just going to be taking up space. The AI will also follow the same restrictions as the player. So starting as the Nord faction is going to give you a huge advantage, especially if you go into fights with people like the Azurai, even the Valandians, who are very cavalry-based factions, or the Khuzaits. But we have skills or companions that can predict the storms. The boatswain skill will reduce the negative effects, though the storms themselves aren't predictable. These dynamic weather events will move across the sea and deal damage to ships caught in them. Players will be able to spot storms forming thanks to visual cues like dark clouds and thundering during the brief build-up phase. And while you can't forecast their path, careful navigation and good ship stats can help you pass safely or avoid them. Now, this is interesting because storms are something that we've only seen in the most recent developer blog, things that can naturally form dynamically and you need to be wary of. It also depends on the kind of ship that you have. A lighter, smaller ship is going to be taken down pretty easily through a storm or at least damaged, while a heavier brigade will be much better at dealing with those sorts of things. Now, you can't just get a ship out of nowhere. You can go to a port and buy or craft a ship, but these will take time to arrive. They have to go from one place to another, perhaps a port that actually builds these ships and a docking station in order to put them in. So you need to be in the port yourselves, and then you can summon a ship to said port. And the arrival time depends on distance, but it's shorter than regular travel time. You can also get certain perks that can reduce this even quicker. But how do the AI react to all this? Because there's going to be a lot of new mechanics when it comes to traversing the map, whether you do it on land or in navy. Of course, sometimes using ships to get around mountain areas will be a possibility. Maybe it's a quicker way to take the waters, and the AI will also do this. For each journey, the AI will weigh a land-only route against one that uses waterways. It will compare their travel time, which is impacted by many factors like equipped shields, mounts, troop counts, inventory weight. Then it will estimate the damage the water route could inflict on the vessels. If the ship's current condition can withstand the wear, the party will choose that route that includes water. Otherwise, they'll decide to stay on land. Not just this, but AI nobles can actually maintain enough ships to transport their party efficiently and will aim to do so. They'll take in many factors when choosing this. When evaluating a suitable party ship composition, they will target to have a capacity that comfortably exceeds the maximum party troop size, allowing for more flexibility. For example, they will make sure they've got plenty of ships, even for their smaller party size, in case they need to take, prisoners, or they lose a ship on the way. On the other hand, they will avoid compositions with too large or a skeletal crew to prevent movement speed penalties. They're going to go for the optimal time because these people have been in this land for a long time, and that's what the AI is trying to simulate. They know how to navigate these waters. Whilst it is a new expansion to the player, to the lore of the world map, it is not new. Besides this, there's going to be plenty of new modding tools, and all of the stuff within the War Cells expansion can be editable within mods. I think it's very exciting that we're getting an entirely new map, and hopefully it means the content coming in will be fleshed out enough to feel like it's warranted an expansion. But what thing are you most looking forward to within the new War Cells DLC? Let me know down in the comments below. But until then, I will see you in the next one.